guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Ashers, and this is.
Pat O'Sullivan.
And also.
Ryan Tremblay.
Oh my gosh, guys, guess what? We have another guest this week. Isn't that so exciting?
Hurrah!
Pat was just bonding with Ryan here. It was a beautiful moment, actually. I'm kind of sad you guys missed it. Talking about their kiss thing. I don't know. They were talking about kissing. It was interesting.
Oh
boy.
Yep, it's gonna be that kind of show. So
that's the mood for tonight. There we go.
So anyway, okay, the monoliths have gotten out of hand. Does anybody else agree that the monoliths have gotten out of hand? Am I the only one?
That's completely Dylan's fault. We know it.
It is. Yes, it is absolutely his fault. I do agree with you there. Somehow it is. I was sent a video by somebody who was showing me these Australian guys making one of the monoliths and putting it somewhere in Australia, and they're just everywhere now. So some guy, I don't know if you saw the picture of the guy that took the picture in Idaho of the monolith in the sky.
No, I did not see that one.
Anybody seen that? Yeah. Apparently he was outside walking, and there was a monolith thing in the sky. I think it looks pretty bad. But who knows? I don't know. It's really taken off, and so now some company is claiming that they are the ones that set up the original monolith in Utah, and that they have been traveling all over the world placing these monoliths. I don't know if I believe them.
Why would they do that though?
Well, that's a really good question. They say that it's the same company. I think they're called the Most Famous Artist or something like that. It's the same company that is responsible for like the Hollyweed sign. I don't know if you remember that at all.
Yeah.
But it was like a big stunt. Yeah. And so I think that, usually they do big stunts like that, they say. However, at this moment, they are selling the monoliths. You can buy your own monolith or purchase it and have it placed wherever you want for $45,000.
And with that, I completely tuned out. Yeah, I mean, it's not. They're getting to be like Kiss with these things, right? Anything they can merchandise, anything they can sell to people. I'm going to put my $45,000 monolith right next to my Kiss coffin.
Yes.
In my garage.
I don't know. I'd be kind of for it though, not for $45,000, but it'd be a great prank.
Well, I know that, like flamingoing somebody's house, when people put the flamingos outside and stuff. Well, I know that there's like a restaurant that put one outside of like their restaurant, and they put it there, and it's
it's sheet metal and plywood. Yeah,
right.
they're not terribly hard to construct.
Right, and so it's like I wonder if these artists didn't just lay claim to the original idea to that way then make money off of it. Because fuck, for $45,000, hell yeah, I'll make you a monolith and put it anywhere you want me to on the planet. It covers everything.
Yeah, I think once the original one was debunked, when they had footage of them tearing it apart, the Dubro base jumper guys tearing it apart. Once that happened, and you realize that this was a terrestrial performance art or whatever the fuck it was, after that, like the other ones that popped up, they got progressively less and less interesting. And like, I don't know. I feel like remember when the clown sightings were big a couple summers ago? Oh, did you guys have that by you? Yeah. So it was like, these things just fucking happen. And like, something like kind of embeds itself in pop culture consciousness and gets repeated. It's a internet thing for a little bit and then it just kind of fades away.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I'm already over it. Like once I saw them popping up in Romania, I'm like, I don't give a shit. Nothing against Romania. I'm just saying, like at that point, it's just like, are we going to get news articles every time some idiot puts one up, like anywhere, and suddenly now it's
pretty much, yeah.
The mystery's gone. You know what I mean? Like we know what the deal is.
I agree with that. Does it even matter now if we know who put the first one there? Probably nothing happened when those dude bros took it down. So no, I guess not.
Right.
But then also in the news this week is that big story that's coming out about the Israeli guy.
Exactly. That's fuck the monolith stuff. This is way more important.
This is the good stuff right here.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan, you know about this?
I do.
Everybody, yeah, it's pretty.
I'll be honest. I attempted to read the article like twice, and I pretty much like just skimmed it both times, only because I had read the quote from the guy that said that the UFOs don't want us to know that they're here. the fact that he interchanges aliens with UFOs, and apparently he does that a lot in his book, really bothers me. That really.
Everybody does that though.
That could be a translation thing. It wasn't original. The interview didn't originally happen in English, so I don't know.
That doesn't like it's not like we don't interchange humans with cars. You're not like, oh, instead of saying, Jessica's going to be here at 7 o'clock, you're not like the car is going to be here at 7 o'clock. That's weird. It's strange. I don't know.
Interesting analogy.
It's weird. I don't know. And I'm not discrediting the guy completely. I'm not going to write him off all the way. I read like a quick summary of the book, and like some of the things that he was saying are things that they're claims that have been made
by our first schizophrenic guest. that was what fucking caught my interest. I'm like, where have I heard this before? Oh yeah, Ashley's other weird friend.
Oh my
gosh! About the underground base on Mars and everything. Now. Okay.
Calling the guy my friend is an overstatement. Second of all, he was onto something with the underground Mars base. I've heard that before.
Well, yeah, he wasn't breaking any new ground with his theories. No. And that's the thing, is that this guy kind of, the claim that this guy makes, which is basically that aliens have been in contact with the United States government for many years, and they're kind of working in tandem with them, doing experiments.
Right.
And we allow them access to, they don't say people, but they just, they don't really specify what, but we work in tandem with them, and we conduct experiments with them, and they conduct experiments with us, and that it's been kept secret from the public because we fear disclosure is going to collapse society.
Sure.
And that there's underground bases on Mars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's nothing new. Like that's, and Ryan, I know you're from Arizona-ish.
I am.
Are you familiar with Dulce?
Oh yeah, definitely. Very much.
Okay, cool. So that's like, and we've brought it up on the show like in passing before, but that's kind of like the theory about Dulce, right? Is that you have humans working alongside aliens, and on certain levels of it, humans are conducting experiments with aliens technology, and then you go down a couple more levels, and it's where like the abductees are taken, and you have aliens conducting experiments like on humans and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, we hear about that all the time in cryptozoology, all the time.
Okay, let's get back to the let's do some Dulce talk later. But like, so as far as this story goes, what this guy is saying is he's not breaking any new ground. Okay,
right. It's his credentials that matter.
Well, this is something that I have not yet verified, but I did hear on the news tonight, was that they were covering this story, and I guess he was this the title that he says that he has, which is, I don't know what the fuck. I'm sorry. We should have had this prepared. But like,
I did not.
The former Israeli space security chief, that he was quoted in a New York Times article from about 5 years ago. That person with that job title.
Oh,
so that is kind of legit, right? Like before all this stuff broke today or this week or last week or whatever, going back years and years and years, there's other legitimate New York Times articles that reference him in that position about completely benign matters.
Okay.
So he seems to be on the level in that respect. Now, he is like in his mid-80s, and some people say that like why he's doing this now is because he's suffering from some kind of dementia or mental illness, which is really, when you think about it, like, aren't all our presidents like in their 80s?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, doesn't that seem to be like the fucking median age for these people now, these world leaders? So I don't know about, that's kind of the discrediting that they're saying. They're not saying that he isn't who he says he is. They're just saying that he's senile now.
That he's old and senile.
Right.
My grandma, when she was dying, she went downhill probably about a month before she actually died, and but during that time she claimed to see aliens a lot. Actually, it was really interesting. I wish I'd known more about it. Actually, at the time, I don't know. I just didn't really make the connection. I just was like, oh, my grandma's dying. She was hallucinating. But
did she describe them?
Yeah, she did. She said they look kind of like E.T. but thinner.
Oh, that's
but
interesting.
they were like ET size. It was brown. That's what she said, and it was interesting. I don't know. It was something happened. I'll have to go back and really look into it with family. But something interesting happened with the clock, and I don't remember exactly what it was. So I don't know. I have to go back and see. She predicted some type of time or something, and it was correct. It was weird. It was a weird situation. Like I said, this went on for about a month, and then she passed, and everybody just chalked it up to the fact that again she was dying. So I don't know. I just thought I'd mention that, talking about the old people and the aliens. Well, to me, it makes sense that they would present themselves to people that would be unlikely to know what they're talking about. Backwoods hillbillies or old people or even children. But usually not anybody with any type of sound mind. Not saying that that's what the case in this guy. Obviously, if this guy he works with them, then he works with them, and that's that. But I don't know. I'll have
Well,
go ahead.
Willie Strieber was one of the most famous abductees and like kind of like I don't want to say whistleblowers, but he kind of became famous and is synonymous with the topic. And he was from New York, and
Yeah.
he was a science fiction author, which is dubious in its own right. But I mean,
Yeah.
so this kind of thing that's put forth where it's like always backwoods hicks and shit like that. It's not necessarily true. I mean,
Oh, I don't think it always is. I just think that it's more likely that it is. I mean, it usually is.
Typically.
Typically, I mean, look at my closest one would be Woodrow Derenberger. I mean, he was just some fucking guy in West Virginia working at some factory. He wasn't anybody, and supposedly he went on to have this whole ass relationship with this entire other planet, basically. So I mean, I don't know. It just like I said, usually it is, but not always. I understand. I don't know. I have to look into this guy's credentials a little bit more because I didn't. I like to get the facts myself, and then that way I can really go over it. But because it's so new, I really didn't take the time to do that. I probably should have. But
Ryan, what's your take on it?
New.
Actually, it's really interesting to me. I mean, somebody like that, it just seems like maybe imagination gets to run away with them. And let's face it, with all the movies out there and all the novels, we can really concoct a really good world if we try. So I do have to wonder how many of these people actually concoct their own world or create their own world and say this stuff is happening when it's really not. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. To me, it's baffling to say the least.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I mean, as far as the Israeli guy,
The Israeli guy, I mean, I don't want to discount anything. I've learned along the way you can never discount just anybody.
Yeah.
You do really have to listen to the details and see if they skip up on the details or change anything along the way. So if they start changing something, that's when usually an indicator that you're okay, something's not right.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, right, that's what I say all the time. With these people, you can't dismiss them, no matter how crazy.
No, absolutely not.
You can't be like, oh no, that's not possible, because guess what? If it is, and you were the asshole that tried to discredit them, then you'll never know. I mean, you're just shooting yourself in the foot with your own research.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I've had that happen before.
yeah, I mean, I had it backfire with the dude with the largest dick in the world, so I understand. He turned out to just be crazy. So sometimes
So he turned out to be a dick.
he turned out he did. He turned out to be the largest dick in the world. You have no idea.
I mean, I don't want to say the biggest, but definitely the biggest I ran into in the month of November. You know what I mean?
I want to meet this guy before, but now I'm kind of nervous too. I don't know.
No, I don't know.
No,
Was he that bad?
Oh yeah. Oh, we were harassed for like I don't know 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, he thought like, okay, so you're being recorded the same way he's being recorded, and he maintained that he didn't know that he was being recorded.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like, dude, I had to send you a link and you clicked on it and your a fucking browser opened on your, or no, we didn't even do it like that. We did it via Zoom.
We did it.
I don't know. The dude was crazy, and like we kind of knew he was, but we figured that like when the show came out, and this is something that you might, come across in your research, where like you come across someone and they kind of have an outlandish story, but you want to give them their time and you want to listen to them, and you want to get their story out there, and you think sometimes crazy shit happens to crazy people, right? And you don't want to discount them, so you kind of give them their platform. And then it just immediately blows up in your fucking face.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you realize that now you're kind of like tethered to this person. This relationship has been formed that you can't exactly just like, you don't just like click on your mouse and then this person goes away and they're erased from existence. Now they're just kind of there, and
you're kind of hoping they don't ask about their interview.
Well,
I've had that happen before. Oh my God. So many times. I know your pain.
it's pretty terrible. I mean, I'll tell you this. I'll definitely never forget the guy.
Right.
He's
Well, he's
certainly left an impact. So
yeah.
whatever happened there. But he was legitimately mentally ill. That's one thing that I don't want to do here. I don't want to exploit anybody with a mental illness. That's
No, of
not,
course not.
Right.
that's not the goal. And so, ultimately I removed the interview with him. I still have it though.
You should really send that my way. I didn't get to hear it all, so
I'll email it to you. Yeah, absolutely.
please do.
It wasn't
Please.
up long. I don't even think it was up the full week before it got pulled. So
That's why I missed it then. Okay.
yeah. And so well, and I think you mostly listen to I think you mostly listen through YouTube, and I really suck about updating it on YouTube. So
Shame.
I know it's terrible. You don't check your DMs. I don't upload YouTube. Whatever.
Man, there she goes again about the DM, man.
So let's talk a little bit about Ryan here. Why is Ryan here, and why do we care about what he thinks? Ryan, do you want to tell the beautiful people out there in podcast land what you do?
Well, firstly, I don't check my DMs, as Ashley pointed out. So
He does not. So don't bother, guys.
I don't. So don't bother messaging me. No, you can go ahead. No, I'm a cryptozoologist, a podcast host. I've been into this for a number of years. Yes, I'm that old, but I've met some really interesting people along the way. You being one of them. So
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, you were talking to Pat. I'm sorry.
yeah, I was completely talking to him. I was not talking to you. No way. So here I am to answer any questions you might have.
That's great. So how long have you been doing the cryptozoology thing? Do you
I started getting into it actually when I was about 9 years old.
Okay. Anything
Yeah,
in particular that caught your interest?
Yeah, the Patterson Gimlin film actually.
Oh yeah,
I remember the first time I saw that, I was just kind of like mystified, like, "Whoa, what is that?" And people started directing me to books, so I started reading all the books I could.
Mine was pretty similar because actually when I popped on the internet and it happened to be big news that the Patterson Gimlin footage was faked, and oh, he admitted on his deathbed that it's fake, and I was like, there's no way that's fake.
Well, see, we're a little bit different in time here. My age is older than yours, so when I first saw that, I remember Leonard Nimoy narrating that. So when it's Spock narrating it, it's not a lie.
It's got to be true. It came from Spock's mouth. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
I had no idea that he even did a narration for the video.
So what is that? What is that film, real quick, for the people at home that might not
That is the best Bigfoot footage ever.
Yeah, the Patterson Gimlin footage is the most.
Oh, is that the one from California?
Yeah, Bluff Creek.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, that's the most solid piece of evidence. When you think of Bigfoot and you see that typical image of Bigfoot in your mind, that's what you're seeing is that footage.
Actually, I don't know if it's the best though, because Freeman footage is pretty good.
Well, I don't know.
What?
I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying that. However, I just feel like I'm biased. I feel like the Patterson Gimlin footage is just, I don't know, it's the OG, man. You got to give it credit for that.
Is that payback because Freeman doesn't check his DMs?
It is. It's personal. That's what it is. So you have a specific topic that if you search for Ryan Tremblay on the internet anywhere, you will see that Ryan Tremblay is pretty much, well, it's also some musician.
Yeah, I've been messaged about that many times.
I'm sure you have. It's also some musician, but everything that you'll see tied to Ryan's name actually involves the Dog Man.
It does.
Would you say that that's probably your specialty? Do you have a certain, like mine's the Mothman, so
I would say so. Yeah, aside from the Geno Squat and the Gugly, yeah, definitely Dogman.
He's like, I've got all these. Well, because you had a very interesting experience with Dogman, so I hear.
I did.
Now I have never heard this story. I've thought about vetting you out. And seeing beforehand, but I thought that, I'd rather hear it straight from the horse's mouth. So do you want to share that Dogman experience with us?
Yeah, that was actually really interesting how it happened. A buddy of mine here in Arizona actually owns a home with property, and he was going away for a while. So, he was going to ask me to watch his house for him. And I agreed. We were good friends, so it was something I agreed to pretty quickly. And I would check, morning, noon, late at night, just to make sure everything was safe and sound. Well, on a certain night, I went about midnight, maybe about 12:15. And I was in the back checking his backyard to make sure the gates were locked and everything was where it should be. And I remembered when I went up back, there was this horrendous smell. And the best way to describe that smell is like body odor, rotting meat, and probably feces.
Yum.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that once it hit you, you're like, oh God, I hope that's not me. And you're, just making sure. Yeah, so, and, I heard coyotes in the background, and that's typical for Arizona. You hear them every night. But on this particular night, though, they sounded nervous, almost anxious, a lot of yipping, a lot of barking. And again, I just kind of dismissed it. I didn't really think too much of it until I heard what was a deeper howl coming from where the coyotes were. So I kind of thought, what is that? Is that a really big dog? What is this? But again, didn't pay too much mind to it because at that point, ironically, I did not believe in the dog man. Now, people are going to attack me for that, but bear with me.
No, I understand.
You hear dog man, you think werewolf, you think movie. Or is that just me? Is that just something I did?
No, I'd agree with that.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't really register in my mind at all that, oh, it could be one of these things. And as I'm checking in the backyard, I happen to hear something moving not too far away. And at first I thought maybe, vagrant, somebody wandering around, somebody trying to fuck with me, pulling a prank.
Right.
So I just yelled out, I'm like, hey. And I thought somebody would yell back or maybe somebody would run. Well, whatever it was, it didn't run. It just paused for a moment. So again, I yelled out, hey, again, trying to be the little badass that I'm really not. And as I yell out this time, there's a deep growl, and I could feel this growl go right through me, Ash. Like I could feel it in my chest, I could feel it in my head. I'm going, what in the fuck is this?
Okay.
And it's starting to move forward. It's starting to move towards where I am. And you can hear the branches cracking and the rocks being kicked around. And as it got closer, I could see the eye shine, that golden eye shine.
Yeah.
And the security lights that my friend had, they happened to kick on at that moment. And it was perfect timing because the lights hit this thing. And it was just like a upright hyena. It was just right there. Had the hyena features, the hyena face. Wow. And it had one of its hands on an upper branch, like it was kind of leaning against a tree.
Okay.
And when it pulled up, when it sat up on two legs, you could hear that popping sound.
Okay.
So I'm staring at this thing going, what in the fuck am I staring at?
Yeah.
And part of me saying run. But there was some part of me that's going, no, don't move because you don't know what it is. So don't run. Don't be stupid. So, I'm staring at it. It's staring at me. And I can see it tilting its head side to side like a dog does when it's curious about you.
Okay. That's kind of adorable.
It is. But I mean, if this thing wasn't about 6 feet tall, I'd be like, aw.
Sure.
The thing's taller than I am. So I am going to die.
Yeah.
So we're staring at each other and staring at each other. And it just charges forward about 3 feet and abruptly stops again. And again, I did not move. I was rooted in place. I kid you not. If I wanted to run, I couldn't.
Right.
So I'm just standing there going, what is this? And we just continue staring at one another. But I was smart enough to divert my eyes at this point. Because you don't stare a predator in the eyes. You never ever do that.
Right.
So it's staring at me for a bit longer. And it starts to move backwards. It's actually walking backwards. And it just finally turns around and it starts going back the way it came. And I bolt into my friend's house. I'm locking the doors. I'm locking the windows. I'm looking for knives because I don't know what the hell I just saw. I'm like, what the fuck? So I call my buddy up on the phone. I'm like, hey, man, you got like a hyena-like thing in your backyard. My friend's sitting there going, oh, you're crazy, Ryan. What are you talking about? Hyena, man. When he came home the next day, we went into the backyard and you could actually see where the claws were sinking into the ground.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So there began my obsession with the dog, man.
And you knew. Yeah.
Because you can't deny it after you see something that close. Because we were about maybe 15 feet away. We did measurements.
Okay.
So about 15 feet, and you really try to visualize that. That's not far away at all.
Right.
And if that thing wanted to clear that distance, if it wanted to clear that distance, it could have done so in a blink of an eye. So I'm just like, okay, I got to learn what these things are. And then I started learning about Linda Godfrey and Vic Cundiff.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's where I got into it. What color was it? What color was the fur?
It's hard to say exactly what color it was. I'd say it was like a reddish, dark brown.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Did you have any not lasting effects, but did you have anything particularly strange afterwards? Did you have any strange dreams? Did you have any illness? Did you have anything?
I had nightmares. I had a lot of nightmares pertaining to that. And I do have epilepsy, so the nerves, the anxiety was causing more seizures.
Right. Right, right.
Because really you're trying to process what you saw, you're trying to digest it. So, I was sitting there just, what did I see? What was this? And the more I thought about it, the more nervous I got.
Right.
So more seizures were kicking in, and little things like taking out the trash at night, I refuse to do it.
Is that still, are you still afraid of the dog man, or has that
Oh
fear
no, nowadays, you tell me, hey, a dog man's seen here, I'll be like, I'm on my way. But back then, no.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. I've got a huge fear of thunderstorms, believe it or not. But learning about it helps alleviate the anxiety. So,
Right.
I understand. And then plus, well, like you said, once you kind of once you've had, like, had time to kind of work through it and realize what had just happened, then you can kind
Mhm.
of reason with it a little bit better, and then kind of be better prepared because
Absolutely.
you didn't walk out there and expect to see a dog man that day. So,
Yeah, no, that was the last thing I ever expected to see. And, not believing in them when you do see them, you're kind of going, wait, what the hell?
yeah,
These
yeah,
things
yeah,
don't exist. These things are in movies. And then there's one right in front of you, though. So what can you say?
yeah, that's true.
How far was the friend's house from where you live?
It was a couple miles.
So the same general area.
Yeah.
Is there a history of sightings or anything in that area, or was that the first of your
Yeah, a lot
knowledge?
of people within this area, within my town and the surrounding towns, have reported seeing the hyena type exclusively. So doing some research on that, if you look at the Arizona climate during the summer, it's very similar to how Africa might be. That's where you'll find the hyenas. So we're kind of wondering if maybe there was a correlation between the climate here, the vegetation, the mountains, the desert itself, and these things coming here.
How do you think they would have gotten there? Do you think that they've just been there, or do you think that they've been
Well,
moved?
that's kind of a mixed thing. Some people will tell you that it's a spiritual slash demonic thing,
Yeah,
whereas Gerhard, when I spoke to him, he was pointing out how there was prehistoric hyenas that lived in Nevada. And Nevada's not really too far from Arizona at all, so maybe they just migrated this way.
sure. And just never, just um, a non-extinct species that we, thought
Hmm.
wasn't here anymore. That makes sense. That would make sense. I'm torn about it, mostly because I know you, and for whatever fucked up reason, I trust you a little bit, and
Should I
and
be flattered or insulted? Or...
a little bit of both. And so, so I believe your story. I believe that, what you saw was a dog man. But I'm also on that same, like, skeptical line, like, man, it just sounds so ridiculous. It's just one of those things that sounds so wild that it can't possibly exist, right? I mean, Bigfoot makes
Right.
sense. Sea monsters, they make sense. We can reason with that. But,
I think part of the problem, though, comes in when you hear all these fantastic stories of dogman encounters where they're invincible, you can't hurt them, or they disappear, or things like that. It always boggles my mind.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. Well, because I mean, well, talking about Dogman, I mean, I'm sure you've heard about, the Hellhounds, which is kind of
Oh, of course.
it's more of a spiritual thing. And,
Hmm.
so it's like, and when we did our Dogman episode, me and Pat, we were kind of talking about that. Are they the same thing? Would they be considered the same thing? Um, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they would be. I mean, they look different.
Yeah, I wouldn't consider them in the same category. No.
You wouldn't
You,
consider
you,
them a type of spirit then at all. You think it's a terrestrial creature.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like something that just is native to the area that got too close to the house or something, or wandered up,
Hmm.
and they just kind of cross paths.
Why do
Yeah,
you think it
that's what I
wouldn't
thought
come
too.
after you?
Well, I'm not really
Well,
a threatening guy, so I mean, he probably looked at me. He's like, "Oh God, I could take this guy in a heartbeat, man. Just chill out, Ryan."
I'm not gonna hurt this guy's feelings.
Right? I don't want to
No.
see him puff up his chest and everything, only to just roar. I'm like, okay.
Dog man's compassionate. That's sweet.
well, and if it's used to if it's used to hunting and killing smaller animals, it's not necessarily gonna go after a human.
Right.
I mean, if you are a comparable size to it, I mean, I get it was a little bit bigger than you or whatever, but still, if it's used to like eating coyotes or like, you
Quail or
know,
whatever.
yeah, I mean, it's not gonna just, you know,
Well, I was kind of touching on it yesterday on Big Dill's stream. We were
Hmm.
talking about. I was mentioning that, humans, we're pretty lean. We're not
Yeah.
fatty at all. That means we're not good to eat.
Yeah, we're really not that edible, and so many people think the missing 411, it's all cryptids eating the humans and so on and so forth.
Right, and it's not. We're not really. We wouldn't
What
do
do you
that.
think that is?
I think it's a lot of things. I think there's some, dirty parties involved, some really nasty humans, and just accidents too. Accidents happen all the time out there. I can't emphasize to people enough. When you go out hiking or whatever, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
You can't just
Yeah.
run out there.
Oh no, my son's in the Scouts,
Mm.
and we went hiking in Madison, Wisconsin, in February, and there was a moment where like we almost got the kids killed.
Oh my
Like
god.
we're like it could have gone. It didn't. But like it was like one of those moments where like there was like 5 parents and like I don't know 5 or 7 kids, and we were like walking real far,
Mm.
and we were like, okay, we got to turn around and go back now. And it's like, well, hopefully we know where the fuck we're going. And like, it was really snowy and icy, and we're like traversing hills and shit.
Oh shit.
And like, yeah,
How old were the kids?
I mean, 3rd grade.
Oh
Oh
my
my god.
So, I mean, we if we were like, we had cell service, like no one was going to really die, but I'm being a little dramatic. But yeah, man, I mean, and I'm a very cautious, paranoid person.
Mm.
Um, so I was like, this isn't a fucking good idea. Like, do we have the 5 essentials? Like, where are we going? There's no trails, and I was like, kind of like very leery of all this. And, when it took that turn, I was like, all right, executive decision. We're going back. Fuck this. This is stupid.
There you go.
Someone's going to die. We got to go back. We got to go back.
Mhm.
And yeah, I completely believe it. And this was scouting. So like you have people that are somewhat naturally inclined.
Yeah.
I can imagine goofballs in fucking California going to some forest preserve or some state park
Yeah.
and just traipsing off.
Yeah.
Well, as funny as it sounds, somebody just walking off a cliff too. I mean, that does happen.
Right.
Strangely enough,
More
So
people die from taking selfies than shark attacks at this point. I just read that the other day. Seriously, from taking selfies and falling off shit. More people die every year from that than shark attacks.
What a world we live in.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it was with the last Point Pleasant visit that we had when we found the aqueduct. So we went out there, and typically, we do a lot of going in the woods and staring at trees, and that's what happens in investigations. But we go out there and we try to go to like our usual spots in the TNT area, and there's cars everywhere. There's people everywhere. It's hunting season. And
That's when you need to be really careful.
well, in the TNT area is private property. So I'm like, okay, guys, we don't have vests. We can't go out in this area. Like, I'm not gonna get shot by some crazy West Virginian in the TNT. This is not how I die. It's not happening. And of course they think I'm being dramatic, and I'm like, it's West Virginia. They will shoot you. Like, that's just, especially if you're on their property and you have no reason.
Oh yeah.
And it's their property. It's why they're hunting on it. And so we've been looking for these big aqueducts for a long time, and they're not, are they significant? Yes and no. It's pretty much they're the only remaining structures from the power plant back from World War II. So, it's cool. It's fun. But I've been looking for them just because I pretty much know the area like the back of my hand and couldn't find these fucking things. So we finally found them, and we're back there, and it had been raining, all day and all weekend, really. And so the whole place is like flooded, and we're like, of course we're stupid, and like we come in like mesh tennis shoes, and we're like plunking in like the flooded area. And then I look like right beside us to one of the ponds and remember that, oh shit, this place is like really fucked up. Like, they need to clean this water. It's really fucked up down here. I'm like, uh-oh. I'm like, are we gonna start growing like 10 toes extra foot? Like, is this safe? And I'm still not entirely sure that I didn't get more cancer from the from the water that I stepped in. So, but it's silly. Nobody thinks about that. You don't think about that when you're going off into the woods. You really don't.
You really don't.
You just hop out of the car and you go in. But realistically, you should, because
I can't even tell you how many times somebody will come up to me and go, "Oh, we're gonna go hunt dog man because we got this gun." I'm like, "Well, you need more than a gun now."
Right.
Right. Never been out in the woods, learn how to read a compass, learn how to read a map, learn what to do in case you get hurt. None of these people know anything.
Right. They're just like, we're gonna go. Well, and that's another thing. I'm like, when we leave the car, people always say, put a note on the windshield of the car so that way, if you're missing for a
Mhm.
couple of days, they could find you. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
stupid stuff like that. But nobody ever does it. I just now finally bought a vest. I'm like, I'm gonna need this. I've been doing this for almost a year and have been just hoping
It
that
took
my red hair is enough to stand out. So
What kind of guns do people usually bring when they're hunting the dogmen? Because I want to say it was the dogman episode where we went online and we found a place that sold silver bullets.
yes.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
can actually buy those off the internet, and
yeah, that's become a really, really popular thing. And people talk about like 50 caliber, and one guy was even talking minigun. I'm just like, what
Jesus,
are you, Jesse the Body Ventura from
where the fuck?
Predator?
Yeah, it's like,
Find the little penis out of the bag.
Wow.
man.
People,
Have you?
oh, go ahead.
We were talking about we were kicking around show ideas, and I brought up the idea of doing a movie review
Ooh,
for an episode, and I had mentioned Willow Creek. Are you familiar with that movie?
heck yes, I am. Very
Yeah.
much so.
What's your? And I actually hadn't seen it. I saw it. Well, I mean, because of the Bigfoot connection, but also Bobcat Goldthwait, who directed it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was obviously interesting because he's a comedian and he's done mostly comedy movies. And this
Well,
is
he's
the
like
horror
that.
movie that he did.
Mm-hmm.
And what's like that? And the I haven't I didn't want to ruin the ending for Ashley, and I almost regret bringing it up right now because I want to get your take on the ending, but I don't want you to give it
Oh no,
away.
I can do it spoiler free. No worries
Okay.
there, man. I thought the ending was very interesting. It's just it left you wondering what the hell was going on at that moment. You
Well,
know,
did you Google it? I mean, he explained it. He did an interview where he kind of
yeah,
spelled it all out. Yeah.
yeah, I did, and I was like, well, that's pretty freaking cool. But it was a frightening ending though, and you really watched that the first time, you're just going, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought the movie was really well done though.
It's yeah. Oh, that scene in the tent. I think they should show that.
Yeah.
I dropped out of film school, but I think that should definitely be something that film students study
Mm-hmm.
because it was so masterfully done. And the Bigfoot stuff. I bring this up because you brought up the missing 911 or 411.
411.
411. That is kind of. I was always very like. Didn't really care too much about the whole Bigfoot phenomenon. It wasn't sexy enough for me. It was just kind of like, okay, great. So there's a Bigfoot and whatever. But it's stuff like that, and it's stuff like Willow Creek that has me paying closer and closer attention. I think like this narrative that Bigfoot might actually exist and be malevolent.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is like more interesting because you do have so many sightings, and you posted that map on your Twitter feed where I had no idea that Illinois. I live in Chicago, and I
Oh
had no idea that Illinois had that many sightings.
yeah, there's a lot of them coming out of there.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Ohio.
yeah, you're pretty good too. And it's weird, but it's weird if you look at that map because like we have exponentially more than any of the states around us, right? We had way more than Wisconsin, way more than Indiana. Indiana had like less than 100, but then so you have like Illinois being a hotbed, more than anything north, south, east, and west of us, right? And same thing with like Ohio a little bit too. Like you guys were pretty close to us. You might have actually had like 10 more than us. Um, but I guess like just talk about the Bigfoot thing for a minute. Like what's your take on that? Why do you think we have so many in some places and then so few in others?
I think in some cases it's because they're so accustomed to humans nowadays that when they hear us coming or see us coming, they kind of go out there to meet us halfway to see what we're all about. As far as them being seen in cities, I think they do that for food as well. So they're not really scared like they used to be.
Well, I'd agree
So you
with
think it's
that.
like an about? Yeah.
I think that they're definitely like
It,
an intelligent species.
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, they have to be.
I mean, I think they're more of a people than we give them credit for.
Hmm.
So I think that they and I think that honestly they probably have some damn good intuition, and they could probably read you like a book, honestly.
Oh yeah, I mean, they've been around us for how long? I mean, you gotta think. If they're watching us and just being around us at all times, they're gonna learn what we're doing.
Right, exactly. So they're gonna know if you're just some dumb kids in the woods, or if you're a hunter with a gun. I'm sure they recognize gun. At the
Oh
bare
yeah.
minimum. So I would agree with that, and I think that population, general human population would be a big reason for the number of sightings. I mean, if you have a state that has more populated cities than not, well, okay, I would say more populated cities, but then
right, but you're not going to see them in Chicago. Like I
Right.
understand we have a higher population than Indiana, but
Right.
you know.
So more populated cities, but then nothing in between those populated cities is what I was getting at.
Well, there's a lot of encroachment too. I think encroachment in certain areas flushes them out to others.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're seeking shelter and they're looking wherever they can.
So is that something that you think they're more terrestrial, or do you believe some of the extra interdimensional theories?
That's 50-50 for me.
Yeah.
That's really 50-50. When you speak to all the people I have, you have to start wondering, are they interdimensional? At first they were all flesh and blood for me. But as I started reading more and talking to more people, I had to start changing my view.
Yeah. 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 Well, so that's one question that I get a lot when I explain to people that I'm a Fortean investigator. Nobody knows what the hell that means, and
I do.
so then I have to break it down. But it's a term that it's a hill I'm willing to die on. Is that's what I do. So what exactly? What makes you say that you are more of a cryptozoologist and not just an overall Fortean investigator?
Because I basically just focus on the cryptids. I mean, I really don't have a lot of interest in some of the other departments.
Yeah.
But I guess I get it through, osmosis in a way, because you talk to eyewitnesses and they're telling you, oh, well, this Bigfoot did this, and then it acted like a spirit, and then it did this, and it became interdimensional. So, you're sitting writing everything down going, okay, I thought this was a Bigfoot report.
What is going on here? Well, that's one thing that like I've kind of observed in the community, which is why, I guess, which I'm not going to pretend that I'm the first person to do any of this research or work or anything like that. I'm not, but it is kind of a niche thing to have somebody that mixes, aliens and cryptids and ghosts and all into kind of one bag, because
Right.
they do kind of seem to be connected. Do you agree with it? Because I've noticed in like the cryptid community, there's a lot of people that are pissed off that
Oh,
there's, these other people kind of, infringing on their on their fringe.
it's all about territoriality, I think, with some people. I'm not like that. With me, if you want to offer theories and whatnot, I'll listen to you, but doesn't mean I'm going to buy into it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, within the community, though, there are people that will get really pissed off at that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been pretty curious about it. I mean, you would think at the end of the day, we all as investigators, we want the same thing. We want to figure out the truth. We want to figure out what these things are.
You know
Everything
what,
that we
though?
possibly can. And so it's like it's kind of silly to, I would
Yeah,
think.
but in a way, people want to be the ones that are right. So you
That's
have that spiritual camp that will not believe anything about the flesh and blood. Then the flesh and blood won't believe anything about interdimensional.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's true
You
too.
know,
Good point.
everybody's just butting heads when really we should just get along and work together.
It would make more sense, right? I mean,
It would, yeah.
if I could find one person that, just specializes in one particular area because that's just what their interest is, then I could be
Right.
like, okay, you handle that. You gather the information, you bring it to me, and maybe I'll do something with it. Maybe not. I mean,
It requires people admitting they're not experts, though.
it does, and that is difficult for people. I've noticed.
Oh, no, hell, I'll tell everybody right off. I don't know shit.
Yeah,
I
right.
think I know stuff, but I probably don't.
Well, right, that's the thing. I don't, I don't have, I have some experiences. I don't have anything, like, I don't have anything that's even half as great as seeing a dog man or anything like that.
Mhm.
I'm more just like the messenger. I guess, it's everybody else handing me their puzzle pieces and I'm just the one putting it together. So,
Nice.
it's not grand or anything. I mean, it's not as well. I don't know. It's pretty awesome. I love my job, but
Yeah,
I'm just some dude that smokes weed and listens to Coast AM. I'm gonna demystify it for you guys real quick here.
you make
That's all it is.
you make movies.
And I have a computer with a microphone headset. I hate to take the wind out of your sails, but I'm just a man.
That's awesome.
So do you do it sounds like you do a lot of your investigating is with the Bigfoot phenomenon. That's what a lot of your cases are, or like a lot of the stuff that comes across your desk. Is there any kind of current trends? Two-part question. Number one, what are some of the current trends that you're seeing lately? And number two, well, I'll let you do that first, and then I'll come to part two.
All right. Well, one of the disturbing current trends I'm seeing is actually everybody's romanticizing these Bigfoot encounters they have. I had one woman tell me that, Bigfoot came to her property because he was attracted to her perfume. And I was kind of going, well, why would he be attracted to your perfume, though? I mean, what the hell? And then she adds on that she was wearing a negligee. So this thing was really, it's attracted to her is what she's trying to tell me.
Oh.
And she goes on to tell me
Was
how
she hot? I mean, I'm gonna.
no,
I hate to interrupt you,
no,
but I mean, like, hello.
no, she was not. I mean, this is one of those women that you almost expect her to go, "You got a pretty mouth."
Oh
But
no.
yeah, so she was making it seem like she and this particular Sasquatch were, having rendezvous every day. And I noticed more and more people are doing this though. Not to the extent that she's doing it, but they're all doing the whole thing of, well, I knew this Bigfoot as a kid. I knew this dog man when I was a little girl. And you're just kind of going, wait, what? It's because of the books they put out there. They're basically smut. So people are reading these and thinking you can actually have encounters like this.
Well, I can relate to that. A lot of people have seriously asked me if I'm actually attracted to the Mothman because I make so many jokes. I'm not, but like,
You seem to have a pretty big wheelhouse. They're like, is he in there? Yeah, I don't know. I've read a couple articles about how like some of the highest selling shit on Amazon Kindle, the Amazon Kindle store is like porn with dinosaurs. You guys heard about that? Like
exists?
taken by a T-Rex and stuff, and
Oh, give me a minute there because I got a mental image with that. I got to knock that out of my head.
Oh, the covers are awesome.
Whoa.
The covers are awesome. Yeah, there's some great Photoshop jobs going on. Yeah, that's it. I guess that's something that I don't want to say it's bestiality, but
it would be though.
Well, I know, but I don't think that it's bestiality in the same way that you fucking your cat is, right? Like there's a different bend to it, and I can see that being because I think that is so popular right now. Like people having sex with monsters, not only. And I mean, this is taking it to an extreme, but I mean, you look at Twilight, you're getting screwed by a werewolf or a vampire. You know what I mean? Or what was the True Blood show that was on HBO? I think those are not exactly that hardcore, but I could see a correlation between that's the intro to fucking a cryptid, and then people that go off the deep end, or the people that the lady that you just talked about. But I could see how the groundwork is kind of being laid and where we're at with pop culture too, where people in general were romanticizing relationships with monsters.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing to have to really look into because you can't just discount them, so you still have to take their story with a grain of salt,
right?
So when they're telling you these little details, no matter how disturbing they are, you have to listen.
Right.
You might walk away scarred and have to seek therapy, but you still have to listen. And it's becoming more and more frequent for me. Like even Dogman, there's even women that fantasize about Dogman.
So sure.
It's like really that'd be like screwing a German Shepherd, really?
Right.
But we know there's people that do that. I mean, the peanut butter story. Yeah.
There are people that do that. I mean, like I said, it's when people do ask me, they're like, "Are you really into the Mothman like that?" And I'm like, "No, that's why." Obviously it's a joke, and they're like, "Well, there are people that are," and I'm like, "Oh, that's weird."
Yeah, but I think there's a pretty big doing it with insects and doing it with mammals are completely different things.
Yeah, that just seems.
It's not really an insect, though. I mean,
he's got moth in his title. I mean, I don't know.
Right? He's got moth wings, but come on.
I don't want to split hairs here, Ash.
He doesn't look like a bug. He's just like a thing,
He looks like a moth, right?
No, not at all. Actually, no. Actually, most of the time he's more like a shadow person. Honestly.
Yeah.
Why call him moth?
Well, the statue did a really bad job of representing the Mothman, but I guess because they had to add in the detail, there's not much detail offered for facial features and things like that.
We really don't know much about that one.
Yeah, right. I mean, because typically, by the time they see this thing, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave now." So
the second part of my question is something that we kind of talk about from time to time on the show, is that there could be the reason these stories change over time is there could be a genuine evolution in what's occurring, right? The reason that if you look at UFO phenomenon, how kind of over the decades, different stories or different narratives are kind of more in the forefront than others.
Yeah.
Right.
And that could honestly, it could be because of cultures changing, so our perception of these things are changing. Or it could also be that there's a genuine evolution in the phenomenon. Do you see anything on your end in the stories that you're taking in where you're seeing what could be like a concrete evolution in the dynamic between human and Sasquatch or dogmen or any of this stuff?
Not really too much. I mean, as far as stories changing, I do know of one story that, from what it was originally, it's so different if you hear it now. And that's the case of LBL, the Land Between the Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because when that was originally filed so many years ago, everybody was saying that was Bigfoot. Bigfoot did this. A Bigfoot killed that family. You ask
Well,
anybody nowadays, and they all say it's Dogman.
can you break that out down for the audience?
Yeah, okay. There was a family that was camping at Land Between the Lakes, and
Which is where?
It's in California. Actually, there's a part of it in California.
Okay.
And according to the story, we don't know much about this, but they were attacked during the night, and a cryptid tore off the door of the camper, and it went after the mother. It got the father, and then the little girl, who was about 5 years old, was found up in a tree. So supposedly people went in, they tried to clear out this deadly Bigfoot, and they never found it. So allegedly it's still there. And it's a very popular place for all the cryptid hunters to go. But when you look at the story now, though, it's no longer a Bigfoot that did this. It's now a werewolf or a dogman or a cult of werewolves that have done this.
A cult of werewolf.
Yes.
Oh, I've never heard. I haven't heard that. But I
Yeah,
guess it
what's
makes sense if they're dogs, they probably run in packs, right? I mean, that would make sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's my assumption too, that, is it really a cult though, or is it just a pack of dogmen? That's
well. I think when they're human, if they're doing this in the human form, then it would be a cult, and then they transform, or I don't know. I don't want to write their dialogue for them. Whatever these
the
people
thing
come
is
up
though
with.
with me, when they always tell me, "Oh, it's a cult of werewolves," I'm like, "Well, were you there to see them change?
Yeah.
Did you watch
Right.
the ceremony? Did you watch them pray to the dark god and be like, 'Oh, we're gonna kill these people'? No. Then all right, Heidi, it's a cult of werewolves, man."
But that does make sense when you look at when we have different video evidence. Oh my gosh, I think we had one on Big Dill stream recently where it was just like some type of furry looking creature, and everybody assumes it's a Bigfoot, but really, even you looked at it and said, hey, that looks more like a dog man than a Bigfoot to me.
Right.
So I mean, I could definitely see a mistaken identity case there, because they are so similar. Now granted, Bigfoot's a lot bigger.
Right.
I would assume. Well, I haven't seen a report of a dog man over 6 foot. I mean, maybe you have, but I've never.
Oh yes, plenty of them. There was a guy telling me about one that was 15 feet tall.
15.
Holy
Ooh.
shit!
Yeah, and I'm just kind of going, "Woo, 15? Yeah, that's a giant."
Which, of course, some people, if they don't really know their measurements properly, or just when you're in a panic, you could over exaggerate. That's for sure.
Oh,
Or
absolutely, yeah.
I mean, you could have a giant ass dog man. We have this. We have the first time I had heard about dog man was locally. We have a dog man society here, like a group of dog men hunters. And I thought it was probably one of the wildest things I'd ever heard, especially because the area that they described it in happened to be that area has like a haunted road, I guess is the best way to put it. And we used to drive down there, I don't know, like every night doing all the drugs. And even doing all the drugs, I never saw Dogman or thought that anything lived out there or whatever. Now that I've kind of grown up and I know more of like what I know,
Mhm.
the whole area is fucking weird.
I bet.
And it would make sense if a dogman lived there. I mean, that would be. I mean, if it was going to be anywhere in Ohio, I could definitely see it being in that spot, because there's so much talk of satanic cults, of of murder
See, that's where the spiritual aspect comes in when you talk about satanic cults and everything.
yeah.
That's where a lot of people believe that these dogmen are coming from, is the satanic cults and the rituals that they do.
Yeah, that maybe we're opening up
I could see
portals and
that
letting
too,
them in.
though. Yeah, I could really see that, though. I mean, I can't really just say, "Oh, it's fake, it's farce." It's something I have to take into consideration.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a religion person personally.
Oh, me neither. No.
Right. And so for me, I hear satanic cult, and like I am more inclined to believe in anything else than a satanic cult,
Right?
as ridiculous as it sounds, or at least to believe that they have the power to even manifest something like that.
Mhm.
Which is kind of bizarre considering what my personal theories and stuff are. However, scientifically speaking, personally I follow that most of these things are ultra terrestrials. I think that some of them are terrestrial, but I
Mhm.
think a lot of them, like Mothman, is an ultra terrestrial, and it just happened to enter into our dimension either willingly or maybe accidentally. Maybe there's different portals in different parts of the world, and that's why there's more. Because when you look at a map of like of high strangeness and you map it all out, it's there are some things happening here and there, but there are clusters of areas of sightings that tend to happen. So it's like obviously something fucking weird's going on there.
Very much
And
so.
and especially, one thing that in the documentary I try to translate to people is that a lot of this stuff you just don't really understand the gravity of it until you're there, until you're feeling it. Point Pleasant is one of those things. When you go there, it just feels off.
Now, do you think that's because of all the stuff that you've read and the stuff that you know?
No, because I didn't kind of same as you with your Dogman stuff. I did not believe in the Mothman the first time I went to Point Pleasant to go to the Mothman festival. I thought it was just fucking ridiculous. I thought it was crazy
That
stuff.
was bullshit.
Oh yeah, and how could there possibly be a fucking Mothman? That's just ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
And then I went to Point Pleasant and I had a string of synchronicities happen and things were just weird. and and then, from that, and then I started like really digging into things from there because I didn't know. I just knew the basics. The Mothman came and people saw him for a year and then the bridge collapsed and they never saw him again. That's what I knew. And
Okay.
I didn't know anything else. I didn't know that the fucking in the 50s that the jail had this huge explosion. I didn't know that Chief Cornstalk was killed at Point Pleasant, put a curse on the land. I didn't know any of that before.
It gets a lot more interesting once you start looking into it, huh?
It does, right? And so from there, I'm like, well, shit, maybe there's something to this. And then I started kind of tying the Mothman thing into other things, and it made sense. And again, a lot of it is just simply my experiences and how I feel when these things happen. Because let me tell you, when something crazy like this happens and it hits you in the face like that, it just washes over your entire body.
For sure.
And
Definitely.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
it just completely engulfs you, and it's just, I mean, it's
Everything changes.
yeah, it's kind of like like a warm hug from the universe, and it's like, and it's a
It
this.
wasn't very warm for me, man. I'm just going, what the fuck did I see?
I feel like it is because it's a validation. I don't know, especially if you're somebody that's always kind of like been interested in these kinds of things.
Right.
Um, and then you have that strange thing happen, and you're like, oh my
I
god.
think in my case, though, because I didn't believe in those, it was more like a kick to the nuts. It's one of those, yeah, we're real, dude. Here you go. Flap. So,
Accept this, yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
except that we're real. All
Yeah,
right.
that's true.
Good enough.
It took a while for me. It takes a minute for it to sink in. So,
Uh,
it took a while, and then I kept having again continued synchronicities even after I was gone from Point Pleasant, and it's just different things kept occurring that made it like, oh well, I guess. I mean, fuck,
creepy.
it's real. I believe you now.
There you go.
You can stop telling me. But it is. But I do think that personally, like I said, it's probably there's probably some type of conduit. It's just not satanic calls.
Now, do you think it has anything to do with like ley lines and things like that, or no?
It could. I do think that's a possibility. With all this, it's a very slow process. When you're doing these investigations, it's a lot of work.
It
And
is. It really is.
especially when you're learning about things that you never thought that you would have to learn about, like ley lines,
Mhm. Yeah, when
like,
those first were mentioned to me, I'm like, wait, what? What kind of lines now?
well, and we've been looking into like the possibility of like limestone. Like there's a lot in Point Pleasant, and we're like, we've always heard that limestone holds energy, and it's
And
like,
the frequency and vibrations.
right. So it's like, is this why? So you have to like study everything, but you don't just study, the one piece of it. You learn the craft, and then you can apply it to your studies. And so
Right.
it's a very, it's definitely not a sprint at all. It's just a slow crawl rather to the finish line that honestly you might not ever get to in your lifetime, and that sucks.
Well, I wasn't depressed until then, but thank you.
It's a good possibility. Now, it's not to say you can't make a big discovery that could then give future generations more power to, take the
Right.
torch and carry it. But look at all these people that have lived and died, and they've made big discoveries, and I'm thankful for them because I have more knowledge because of them, and I'm not starting at zero. But that was something that I had to accept, is that I might not be able to prove these things to the entire world. I'm just gonna try though. Now, what do you think about the because I know that this is a really touchy subject in the cryptid community, so I kind of want to touch on it. What do you think about the Erickson project?
Ooh,
I know.
that is pretty touchy. That's really something that I don't discuss with people too often.
Okay.
You
Is
know,
that
I mean,
just because you choose not to, or because it's never brought up, or?
it's not that it's not brought up. It's just one of those things that I've seen it cause a lot of problems. So, being who I am, I just kind of distance myself from it. It's kind of like a Melba Ketchum,
Yeah.
because the stuff that Melba has said. A lot of people like to go to war because of that too.
Yeah.
So you distance yourself.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's not a bad. But do you? So do you? You don't think that there was anything to it, or do you think that she just
Oh, I think
completely
there
ruined
very, very
everything?
well could be. There very well could be. It's just, how it's actually shared and what it's said to be. It has to be really careful, like, how it's shown to the public.
Right.
What's the Erickson? I mean, I just had to Google it, so I know, but I had to Google it. I'm the co-host of the show,
Go
so
ahead,
let's
Ash.
pretend the people listening might not know what the Erickson project is off the top of their
Sure.
heads.
Yeah. So the Erickson Project was a privately funded DNA project where they would accept donated samples. Most of the time, they were hair samples. I don't remember what all samples they had. And then they would take these things from allegedly Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and they would sequence the DNA from it. So basically, you're like retro engineering DNA to like
It's
show
Jurassic Park with Bigfoot,
kind of,
Minus the
except you're
frog
not
DNA.
cloning.
minus the what?
Minus the frog DNA.
Minus the frog DNA. You're not cloning, so the it's not to it's a way to prove the existence of them existing without having basic proof like a body. That's basically all it is.
Right.
And so it's that's the basics of it. Well, the lead scientist of the project was Melba Ketchum, and she said, "Hey, we prove these things are real. Here it is." And she kept trying to put the project in for peer review. It eventually did get approved, but a lot of people still don't think that it was correct science. So it's kind of
Well, the problem with that came in when she started saying there was Nephilim DNA.
yeah, yeah,
A lot of people were going, "We know Nephilim DNA now. How do we know Nephilim DNA?"
right,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
So she added her own spin on it to where and it got to the point she still claims now, like, she had moved to out in the middle of the woods, and says that Bigfoot's a people, and that
Right.
they she has a some type of a relationship with them. She's actually one of the people that writes Bigfoot erotica.
I'm not surprised.
She does. So she's kind of gone off the deep end here, but I mean, it is shocking because she did have all the credentials in place, but it's like, at the same time, who are we to discredit? I mean, she does have the
Yeah.
science.
See,
We've got the
how she phrases things, though, that can cause a lot of confusion because when she says Sasquatch or people,
yeah,
everybody's going to think that she means they're a type of human being.
right, right.
They think like us, that they act like us, but how do you actually explain the more ape-like features that people describe?
Right, right, exactly. Well, and I mean that's kind of yeah. I mean that's kind of what she was getting at, though, is that they were more like a tribe of people. They have their own form of communication, but it's still they don't talk to each other. It was never her claim or anything. So it's like, well, so is it a person, or is it just? I mean, is it another intelligent species? I mean, is it just like one step closer, like the missing link?
She
But you're
did some
right. The
work
way
with,
that when you start talking about Nephilim DNA,
right, well, I think she did some work with Sasquatch Ontario.
did she really? I didn't
I
know.
think she might have, because I remember that guy was going around saying how they did have a language, they did speak to each other, and they spoke to humans too. And again, if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is.
Well, and she kept making huge claims. They were supposed to be so what they were doing also was making a documentary about the project and like how
Mhm.
along the way. And she was making these huge claims that, we've got solid video evidence, of these things living, and there's no way that you can deny it, blah blah blah. Well, then eventually the evidence well, maybe some of the evidence came out, and we ended up getting two videos. One was one supposedly sleeping, and it
Hmm.
was just a mass of fur laying on the ground, and which it was to show how they breathe because they breathe a lot slower than us. Then again, it was asleep, so I don't know. Could have been anything. And then we got the ever so popular Matilda footage.
Oh yes.
I don't know how I feel about it. It is a close up face shot of what is allegedly one of these Sasquatch. And if real, it's extremely impressive. However, a lot of people on the internet ended up finding I believe, a Chewbacca mask
Mhm.
that looked eerily similar to the Matilda footage.
Well, the photograph came from Todd Standing, didn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, there. Yeah, a lot of
And that's
people in the
another
crypto
issue.
field. Oh boy, Todd Standing. Don't even get me started on that guy, man. Oh boy,
Right, that's a whole nother fucking right. But
that's a whole ball of wax right there.
he was really the only person that was like backing her though, and so I don't blame her because I don't think she was into this community before,
Right.
but just her getting involved with Todd Standing, and then all these claims that she was making, it just wasn't a good look. And
Todd was making a lot of money off of this too.
oh yeah, definitely. Wasn't he the one that was involved with the he was involved with the frozen Bigfoot, right? That was
Yeah.
him,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. I thought that was him. Yeah, that guy's an asshole. What's he doing nowadays, do you know?
Yeah, he's charging nominal fees to take people out to the woods and guaranteeing them Sasquatch encounters.
What
Wow.
are people doing it, or what are they seeing
Oh
when
yeah,
they go out
yeah.
there?
I mean, there's people paying $15,000-$20,000 to go out there, and I'm just like, wow, golly, new market right here.
Right. Well, I'll do that. I mean, I'll
Yeah,
do it
let's
with
just
the Mothman.
dress our friends as Bigfoot and be like, hey, go wait over in the tree line and just make noises.
Just tell Bill to come do it. He'll do it.
Oh, he would. Except he'd have Paco with him in his probe. So
So, so now, come see this alien get probed by Paco. Oh well, I mean, it would, if people would pay for it, I mean, then absolutely, that's
yeah,
fuck
I mean,
do it.
it's just Bill's reputation. What do we care, you know?
Right. Man, that's crazy. I just, like I said, it's probably one of the hottest takes in the cryptid community is that specific project. So, you always
Mhm.
gotta know. And that it's kind of a judge of character. I know that you're in the you're so unfortunately I can't get the fuck away from you, but you're in the cryptozoology group on Facebook, well, one of them that I'm in. And there was a guy on there making some pretty heavy claims about mermaids. And I don't know if you
Oh,
that.
I don't think I've seen that post yet,
Yeah.
but I will definitely have to go and look for it.
Yeah, he was making some pretty big claims about mermaids. What's your stance on mermaids?
Honestly, I have to think that they're just misidentified.
Yeah.
I don't think that they look like those hot females, that have the hot upper torso and then the fish torso at the bottom. No, I think it's just something that we might have seen that looked something like a human, maybe like some kind of lungfish or whatever, and we were just like, oh, egads, mermaids.
Yeah. I
I
think it
don't
had
think that they're.
boobs.
I don't think they're anything like we see in the movies or we read in those books. I think that's a misidentification thing.
I agree with that. I just think that it would be especially the way that they're portrayed not just like as Bigfoot, who's like, kind of intelligent. Like mermaids, supposedly, like the way that we see them, they have like whole cities and shit in the water.
They're brutal sometimes too.
Yes. Yeah, that's what they say. But I just don't think that they're. I think that we were kind of talking about the Wendigo last week, and we were saying how a lot of these things, a lot of the times, can be explained by like natural occurrences. So it's like, when they talk about the
Mhm.
sirens and stuff like that. I mean, it would be pretty easily explained that the explanation there is just that these men fell overboard, and there happened to be wind blowing, and it sounded like some type of whistling. So,
Sounds about right.
yeah, I mean, I think that we have absolutely zero evidence of mermaids, and at least none that I've seen that is solid.
Hmm.
So I guess I don't think that they could be a thing. But that's another hot take. Unicorns is another one, and it's like, well, when it comes to unicorns, there are horses with one horn on their head. I mean, there are
Hmm.
people that will grow a horn on their head. It's called genetic mutations. I mean, is the unicorn real? Technically,
I think technically, yeah. I mean, we had that type of rhino too that walked like a horse and had that one horn.
Right, right, exactly.
So,
So, it's yeah. I mean, it's one of those kind of gray area things. What do you think your most believed extinct species would be? I know that's kind of something that doesn't get talked about a lot in the cryptid community is the extinct species that are probably still
Oh boy, that's a good question. Wow, hitting hard with the good questions here, Ashley. Jeez. I'm gonna have to say something like a plesiosaur. I know a lot of people want me to say megalodon, but I don't believe megalodons are still alive. But I think plesiosaur could still be out there.
I think so. Do you think that it's probably? I mean, do you think that Nessie's still out there and would be a plesiosaur? That's a whole nother topic.
I think she was out there. I think by now she's passed away, unless she's had babies and there was a whole race of them in that lock. Then no, she's gone. She's long gone.
Oh yeah, I think so. Well, I was actually reading earlier about how there's been 12 Nessie sightings this year, which is pretty
Hmm.
good, considering there wasn't one for a very long time, and it was speculated
Right.
that that she was dead. But I think so. I think you're right about that. I know that your stance on the megalodon is pretty hard. It's pretty solid. I know that you don't really you're just not having it with that megalodon, are you?
No, not at all. I mean, there's no way that thing could actually survive nowadays. I mean, if it was eating whales like it should, it's going to be seen. We would have seen so many by now. We would have found bodies, teeth,
Yeah.
fresh teeth, not fossilized teeth.
Yeah, they're just so big. Well, of course, then the go-to argument for something that large existing would be the giant squid or the colossal squid. Even
Hmm.
we know that they're real, and we didn't for a long
True.
time. We just thought that they
This is
were
true.
made up of legends. But because they are out there, I mean, you don't think that that would be an argument for the megalodon?
No, no, because we definitely would have seen something by now.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, with all the underwater drilling we're doing and the cable lines too, we would have run across something, some kind of footage or whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah, that's
it's not there. So what can we say is actual evidence of them being alive today?
right. Right. Well, and I think what a lot of people, misconstrue with this is that, they can't listen to you because, like you said, a lot of people disagree with you. They can't
Hmm.
take your professional opinion and take it as fact. A lot of this field has to do with kind of critical thinking and doing your own bit of research and coming up to
Right.
your own conclusion. And I mean, would you say that that's fine? I mean, would you agree that that's okay to do?
In a way, I would say yes, but in a way, a big way, I'd say no.
Oh,
Always you got to keep digging. Just keep digging. If you don't like somebody's answer, then please, by all means, go dig and find your own answers
yeah,
and match them up with other people and see how they line up.
yeah,
But never just dismiss somebody though. If you ask a question and they give you an answer, don't just dismiss it. Keep it in the back of your mind
sure,
and formulate your own theory.
sure, yeah. I think that's the fun part about this is that if there's something that like you don't agree with,
Hmm.
or you come across another person in the field that you guys don't see eye to eye on a certain topic, maybe you agree with something that I don't. If you prove me wrong or if I prove you wrong, I think that's fun. I think that adds the challenge to it.
Oh,
And
you mean like my ability to answer DMs?
see, I didn't bring it up that time.
You left the opening though, so
just to reiterate to everybody, Ryan does not answer DMs, so don't bother. I just
no, no, no. I just don't read Ashley's DMs.
it's just mine. that's that's more believable. I can see why. All I do is send you Mothman porn. I mean, come on.
Yeah, right. Make it Dogman porn. Switch it up once in a while.
Put a little dog man in there. You might read it more.
There you go. I might. I might.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that I think it's fun to have you on. I think it's fun to have you have, your own perspective on things because again, like I said, I'm more of a blanket term investigator and you have more of an actual mastery in a specific topic and I know a lot, but obviously the opinions are going to differ. And I think that sometimes people get sick of listening to me talk about aliens because everything's aliens to me. So
So you're like that guy in that meme. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens.
it's aliens. Yes, that's me. I'm gonna do my hair like that, but except it's gonna
There
be
you go.
fire red and take a photo shoot and aliens do the aliens thing.
Hey, speaking of which, can we get to Dulce real quick before you hop off?
Oh, go
We
ahead.
could. If you want to.
Yeah. So, what's your how far away are you from there? What's your relationship with that place?
I'm not really too close, but you know, if you live in Arizona, you always hear stuff about it.
Hmm.
You know, and I think it'd be a great place to actually look into some more. So if you ever want to, you know, come to Arizona, do some investigation,
I'm
just
totally
saying.
down. That's.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So,
Actually, I didn't invite you. What are you talking about? No,
Oh,
I'm
I'm
playing.
sorry. I forgot you and Pat have this bromance going on. My bad.
so Dulce, once again, explaining everything for people at home. Dulce is kind of like another Area 51.
Hmm.
It's kind of, I always thought of it as like the the Area 51 of Area 51s,
Hmm.
where it's not necessarily as popular or popularized in pop culture, but it's this hotbed for UFO activity. I think it's kind of by the Skinwalker in Arizona as well, or is that Nevada?
That's Nevada.
Okay. And it's a mesa. It's the Archuleta Mesa
Hmm.
in Dulce, Arizona, and there's a government installation built inside of the mountain, and there's a lot of UFO activity, lights in the sky type stuff around the base, and some of the more fantastic UFO conspiracy theories have to do with the base itself.
Hmm.
And the base in the mountain is just kind of like the top part, but it's supposed to go several hundreds of miles down into the ground, and there's supposed to be underground trains and UFOs. That's where the aliens live and all kinds of stuff. So yeah.
You hear some crazy story about that too. You know, like people hear the trains running underground, or they see the aliens coming out from underground.
Yeah, that's something that's. I mean, it's always kind of been there, but it's becoming a little bit more popular lately. Is the USO,
Yeah.
unidentified submerged objects, and I think it's because the Navy has started to release like some footage or something, or there was something that happened a couple years ago that was footage of stuff coming out of the water.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yep.
definitely, it's a possibility. I mean, it would make sense logistically.
Yeah, it's a
That
fascinating place. It's fascinating to look into.
I mean, what's
yeah.
really interesting about things like that is that, like, well, like we did the Right Pat episode, and Ohio happens to be, kind of a place of high strangeness, and then you guys have Dulce over there, and Arizona is definitely a place of high strangeness. I mean, are these things all connected together? Is it because of the location of these things?
I like to
Maybe.
think so.
Yeah. I mean, I would think so. I would too. Well, like my right Pat informant, like I said, the most interesting thing that he said to me was that, a popular legend here is that the Air Force Base and the museum and that whole area is very haunted. And he's like, no,
Mhm.
that's not it. It's just the reactions from the technology that they're testing there. And that was again, like I said, it's very interesting to me because then it's like, well, then what is it? Is it just secret
Right.
government high tech stuff? Is it alien stuff that they're testing? I mean, what exactly is causing all of these, weird happenings to happen? And then you mentioned, Dulce is built into the side of a mountain. Well, guess what else is in mountains? Limestone.
Going back to our frequency and vibration there.
Jesus. I
Exactly.
I would say let's do an underground base episode before we do a limestone episode.
We'll get there
I
then.
mean, it's your show. You do whatever the fuck you want. I'm just saying. This
Appreciate it.
limestone thing you guys keep bringing up, like, all right.
It's kind of it's not a new thing to me, but it's definitely been brought to my attention, and it's something that I'm willing to entertain because
Yeah.
Right. No.
Definitely an interesting subject.
yeah, I mean, you have to. Yeah, you have to. And that's one of those things. Maybe we'll do, well, just frequencies in general, I think would be an interesting topic to cover. So anyway, Ryan, do you have anything that you want to shill? Now is your time to shine.
Oh, I'm definitely going to shill the hell out of my own show.
Yeah.
Whisper to a Scream podcast. You can find me on YouTube, and Paranormal Roundtable with Josh Turner. I co-host over there, and you'll find me on Dillstream too. So if you want to check me on Dillstream, you can do that.
Yeah, I think we're both supposed to be on Dillstream tomorrow or Thursday. I'm not sure.
Is that tomorrow?
Tomorrow's Wednesday, right?
It
I don't
is.
know. I asked him. He's like, "I'll let you know," and Dill.
He does that shit. You know what? Dylan's gonna do that. He's gonna be like, "I'll let you know," and then 5 minutes before the show begins, you coming on?
Oh,
You said
right.
you didn't know, Dylan.
God damn it, Dill. You gotta give me some time. So I guess I'm just gonna be ready, and if it happens, it happens.
All right,
Whatever.
great.
All right, well, great. I think it was fun having you on. I think
Absolutely.
we could definitely, if people want to hear more from you, we could definitely have you back for a round two. Sometimes people
That'd
have
be
hundreds of
fantastic.
questions, so I think that would be cool. But
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd be all for that.
yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you next Wednesday.
All right, you guys take care now.